Hey everybody, Chris here. Is Dogecoin bottom surfing? What does that mean? What does that look like? We're going to take a look at that in this video. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel. Hit that little notification bell too. You can be notified when new videos come out as well as when I do live streams. And on the Wednesday live stream, we were looking at bottoms and how some cryptos were bouncing a bit off bottoms. And overnight, we did see a slight little rally. I'll show that on the charts. But sentiment is still down. Fear and greed is still down. Bad news still on the horizon. Bear market stuff. However, we are looking to see where entry points are. Are they going to be now or later? Let's get into it. Let me show you the charts on the news. I'll show you what I'm looking at. And we start here looking at the current Dogecoin chart at 9.35 cents. Just breaking over my downward sloping resistance line that we've been watching for the past few days on Dogecoin. So a slight little breakout, up about, it was up about 3% for the day. Bitcoin was only up about 1.5. Bitcoin did come over its downward sloping resistance line as well, but is now retesting it as support as I'm making this video. ETH, however, it has a resistance line that is straight at $2,000, came and hit it again as resistance early this morning and is bouncing back down. So a little bit of upward movement overnight. However, as we are here right before the stock market opens, as I'm recording this, we're seeing crypto pull back just a bit. Overall, the big news yesterday was Elon and XAI, SpaceX, and he had an all hands that was broadcast. A lot of talk about the moon, AI, robots. Could there be a human and robot settlement on the moon? And as I say, with Dogecoin as currency? Because why not, right? Elon could do that. Elon could do that. But most of this announcement also that we wanted to focus on was X money. And Elon did talk about X money and said X money will be a game changer. We actually have X money live in closed beta with the company, and we expect in the next month or two to go to unlimited external beta, whatever that is. I mean, it's limited now and it's going to become unlimited, still in beta. I say it's not launched until I see it. But then Elon says, and then we go worldwide to all X users. This is intended to be where all the money is, the central source of all monetary transactions. It's really going to be a game changer. That is what Elon says. And does X money then go back to the moon? And again, how is he going to have currency on a moon outpost, a settlement on the moon? It's all very exciting. This is the future, and Elon is going all in now on the moon. Mars is out there, literally, but he's talking about the moon now, and moon has such limited gravity that it's easy to get up off the moon, much easier to take off from the moon than it is from the Earth. So it makes a lot of sense. Like when you explore like the galaxy, big stuff, and also you're deploying like servers, out in space, and very, very interesting stuff. However, we're going to talk right now about the odds of another U.S. government shutdown by Saturday rises to 82%. Now, from what I am hearing, it's not going to be a complete government shutdown. It may be limited and focused on the DHS, which is the one part of all of the government funding that the Democrats are arguing against the most. And if they can somehow just table that issue, the rest of the government stays open. Is that possible? That's what I hear is being discussed. So on Polymarket, that would be a, quote, government shutdown, even if partial. So I think the bettors are betting on that, up 82%. But we'll see as we get closer. Crypto Fear and Greed Index has dropped to 5, the lowest level ever. That's where we are. We're at a 5. Now, maybe today it ticks up to a 6 because we have a little bit of a rally, but extreme fear at 5. And we see it. We see it. The sentiment is there. World Uncertainty Index rises to levels never seen before. The market hates uncertainty. So gold and silver although they just had a little bit of a pullback, they could come back up even higher, which is hard to believe. Although silver was down into the $80 range from 120, which was a big pullback because it just got so overheated before. Gold's still over $5,000. But that's not good. Markets don't like that. BlackRock sells $72 million worth of Bitcoin. And again, this is IBIT. This is the ETF. These are the investors in the BlackRock buying the IBIT. They're now selling it, right? Over the past couple days, we've had a lot of negativity. We've had pullbacks. So this is BlackRock then following through because, again, every time an IBIT holder sells a Bitcoin of the ETF, then BlackRock needs to sell a real Bitcoin. And that's what this is. That's what this is all about. So we had 2 days of inflows, and now we have 1 day of big outflow for BlackRock. Is Bitcoin going to go back to 60K? Titan of Crypto says Bitcoin has failed to reclaim the Tenkan in his Ichimoku analysis. I don't follow this stuff. I don't know what that means, but it is a rejection off of this red line going back lower. And so will Bitcoin come back and retest 60K? And this is the surfing the bottom kind of thing for Bitcoin that we'll be looking at, whether there's a retest of $60,000. And is that a good entry point for Bitcoin? Just in, the Kalshi markets price an 81% probability of Bitcoin falling below 60,000 this year. Bearish odds are elevated. So the outlook is negative overall. 81% probability Bitcoin falls below 60K. Gel says, look, Bitcoin has started to fill the wick into the previous cycle highs. So as we look at that wick we had down to 60K, price came back up just over 66, 67. And we go back to the end of 2021, Bitcoin wicked up to 69, but the main bodies were still in this range from about 64 to 67,000, which is about where Bitcoin is right now. So interesting comparing cycles. We go back to the previous cycle where the high in 2017 was 20,000, but we had a huge pullback down below 20,000, and that was after that FTX bankruptcy and crash, where Bitcoin bottomed down at 15,600 on a wick. So there was a negative news story that pushed Bitcoin even further down below the area of interest from the previous cycle. Could we see that kind of thing happen again? As Gel says, as discussed over the past 1.5 weeks, bottoms take time to form and generally do not V-reverse. We saw these short-term little V-shaped recoveries. We may not see that going forward, which is what I call bottom surfing, because I think we're going to be bouncing around sideways for a bit. We might have little relief rallies here and there, followed by pullbacks. I continue to watch the show unfold, waiting for the right conditions to form to get long again. Patience, that's bear market stuff. So Crypto Elite says there's a rising trend line on the chart that has been working for years. So we zoom out and we look again back to 2021 and what happened with these two bounces, 64K and then 69K, and we draw that line. Well, that's the same line that Bitcoin eventually came up to following the launch of the Bitcoin ETF, finally broke above it over 100K, bounced back, and that what was resistance became support, and then support again and bounced around for a bit until breaking down below. So Crypto Elites is looking at a pullback maybe down to 45 or 35K. We don't know if it's going to get that extreme or not. Many are targeting this cluster of trading here, which is the 54 to 55K range. So we will be watching that and what is the bottom surfing there. If we look at ETH, Crypto Rover says ETH has seen a major selling volume spike. This is exactly what marks bottoms. We've seen these big spikes in volume of ETH trading. Now, most of that is manipulated because of leverage and taking out long leverage trades, particularly on ETH when ETH gets targeted. And that's essentially what we have had here for the past few weeks. This big pull down on ETH was flushing out all of that leverage trading from early 2025. Hundreds of millions of dollars of trades on ETH. But we do see that the huge volume tick up. Is this a bottom again? Jasmy, another one in a big falling wedge. And the breakout on Jasmy, it's just a little candle here, but it's a start, and that could be a bounce off of bottom. I think this is going to be a short-lived one where we're going to see negativity and come back down. And Jasmy has been in the 0.005 or half a cent range, now at 0.006. But could we see Jasmy fall back down to 0.004, 0.003, which was pretty much the bear market bottom back in 2023, where I was buying Jasmy last cycle? I may look to buy more Jasmy if we get down to that level. So we have gold and silver falling slightly. Not huge pullback. Silver down, 3.5%, 4% over the past day and a half, where gold is down about 1.5%. But Bitcoin, ETH, and Doge also had slipped. We have extreme fear down at its lowest levels. So analysts see Bitcoin slow bleed to this level before a rebound. And that slow bleed is what we're talking about on may not be violent dips in Bitcoin, but may be continued leverage trading, taking out leverage lower and lower below 60K. And it looks like the odds are that is going to happen. Dogecoin stumbles lower, market awaits trend shift signal. And right now, there's nothing to suggest a big trend shift. There's nothing to suggest that. This chart was taken here, also has a downward sloping resistance line, but this guy even made it a channel with a support line, but the support line didn't quite line up right. So I never drew that. I just drew the resistance line, of which from this point, Dogecoin actually did trade up over that line overnight and now is retesting it as support. Overall, Dogecoin currently sitting at historical support. If you go all the way back to 2017 and you see this upward sloping channel where Bitcoin Census sees some sideways trading. Again, this is the bottom surfing, and we will see some kind of dip that will come lower. Where does that dip come and when does it come? I believe that will happen, followed by another dip later on. This could be June into August, June into September, and then we finally get a big run on Doge. Is that going to be when X money launches worldwide? As Elon said earlier, that would be the big thing. Will it get Doge up over $1? That could take a bit because Dogecoin most likely is not going to be on X money when it launches. I'm sure it's working internally fine on fiat, but it doesn't have the digital asset crypto or Dogecoin going along with it. But that's the kind of bottom surfing we would expect to see after this bear market pullback, where there will be some dips. How dippity dip deep are those? And what are those levels? That's what we've been watching and talking about during live streams. And this is what I'm waiting for. I have patience, as Jell says, as well. Trader tardigrade, of course, is always like pump, pump, pump. So exponential decay seems rather short on this time frame as opposed to previous cycles where it was much longer. And I think this is going to be longer before we see that pump. So we just have to take that ellipse and pull it to the right and let this whole bear market play out. So that's where I am looking at the current situation. We will watch whether Doge bounces off of this line as support and goes higher, or is going to be too much weakness and it's going to fall back down. We'll be watching that as well. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think about surfing the bottom? Yeah, it's a bear market, guys. Sorry, but that's where we have now. Give the video a like. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate the support. We'll see you next time.